vengeance. Blake channel, it's your boy Fab. Today we're talking about the one, the only, the Batman. And tonight I'm joined by Ed and Christopher. What up, boys? How you doing tonight?
What up, what up?
All right, boys. So, Batman's been out a little time now. If you haven't seen it in the theater, like I did, you've got to watch it on HBO Max, courtesy of me, I'm sure. Thank you, Chris. So, let's get right into it, boys. The Batman, right? So, this is the third iteration of Batman we've seen in 20 years. Everybody knows Nolan's is probably the top level of the Batman stories we've seen. We had a Zack Snyder shit fest with Batman vs. Superman in the Justice League. We're not even done with that because you're going to see the next Batman, Ben Affleck, one more time in the Flash movie. They even bringing back Michael Keaton. But we got to talk about the new Batman, which of course has Robert Pattinson of, the Twilight fame and Harry Potter and other movies that you've seen him in. But, all right, Ed, we'll start with you, brother. What was your overall opinion of the Batman?
Overall, I didn't have a problem with it. It wasn't my favorite, but I liked the story. I thought it was a departure from what we normally see. This was like an emo kind of anime type of Batman. But was it a typical superhero movie? Probably not. It was like a murder mystery with costumes.
Yeah, true. Definitely true, man. And how many times have you seen it so far?
Twice.
Okay. Chris, what was your overall opinion of this movie? I know you're the freshest of the three of us who got to watch it. So how did you feel of your overall opinion of it?
I think that the movie visually was very impressive. I liked the noir theme of it. I thought that the color iterations that they used, everything that they did, with setting it up was very cool. It was a very different feel. I think it was a good mix between the Nolan universe, which was very realistic, and like the Michael Keaton cartoonish comic booky Gotham. I think they played a good mix between the two worlds. Other than that, I mean, it wasn't a bad movie. It was shot well. I think it was a little overblown, and I think that there was a lot of holes in it. And for a 3-hour movie, I think that they could have, explained things a little bit better and went into, a little more detail. But it wasn't a bad movie. It definitely wouldn't rank in my top Batman movies.
All right, good, because we're going to ask that question a little bit later on where it lands. But, all right, so I'll give you my opinion of it. Now, I got to see it in a fan fest like a day before the opening night. So I got to see it on a Wednesday night with my wife. We both thought it was all right. And I honestly felt like it was a little too long. But on second watch, if this makes any sense, I think I liked it less. So it's like, when I really got to dive deeper at home, I felt like, it wasn't as great as I remembered, Like, I thought it was good. I never thought it was really great, but I felt like on second watch it was getting worse. But let's move on. The Batman himself, Robert Pattinson. We'll start with Chris. Chris, what was your feeling of the portrayal by Robert Pattinson?
I actually think he did a good job. I think it was acted well. I think he surprised me in a lot of ways because leading into it, I kept thinking of the pale character from the vampire movies, So I was like, it's gonna be emo, it's gonna be geared towards more women, and it's not. They're not gonna stick to what his original intent was.
You thought he was gonna be sparkly, right?
Yeah, a sparkly Batman.
But very emo though, very emo. I would agree with that.
I wasn't a fan with, kind of more. It was more of on the writing end. I think Robert Pattinson himself did a really good job. He came off very intimidating. He played the part very well for what was given to him. So on that end, I don't really have anything bad to say about the Batman.
All right. Well, what about you, Ed? What was your feeling on Robert portrayal of Batman?
The only problem that I had with the acting was that in all of the other iterations of Batman, there's a clear divide between Bruce Wayne and Batman, and I didn't get that. I felt like he was the same dude. With or without the cowl on, he was the same emo, angry orphan. He did some ass kicking in the costume and did some crying outside of it. But outside of that, there was no difference between the two. Affleck, Keaton, there was a difference between the characters, and you felt it. And I didn't get that from this guy.
Yeah, I don't know if that was like a story choice itself, because that was the one thing that bothered me on the first showing, was that basically they didn't give Bruce any time to really shine. It was basically he was so wrapped up in being Batman. We all know that's like his real, I guess, personality. It's like Bruce Wayne is the mask, but they didn't flush that out at all. It's like he basically didn't care about anything. He was never out and about, yet everybody knew who he was. That's interesting. But I thought his portrayal as Batman was pretty decent. I still don't think he has the body type to really come off as Batman. He just seems a little too skinny and kind of lanky-ish to really be Batman. I always thought Affleck had the right kind of body structure to be Batman. So for me, I didn't hate the portrayal. It was more, like you said, the writing. I didn't like that, the fact that they looked at it like it was a Batman in his second year or first or second year, I believe his second year, and he still hadn't figured out the Playboy persona, which I always assumed that when he started Batman, he knew that he had to have the divide, because some things he's not going to be able to do as Batman, but it looks like they made a creative choice to kind of take that out. And to me, I thought that was a little sus, made me like it a little less, but let's move on, because if you got Batman, we got to look at the main villain, which of course was the Riddler, who was played by Paul Dano in this movie. Now, if you didn't realize or hear about it before, the Riddler seemed to be based mainly on the Zodiac Killer. That's what they were really going for in the movie, to kind of get that Seven feel. So, Ed, what'd you think of the Riddler?
If you wanted a psycho, you got a psycho. The guy, he's an over actor. He's in all the movies he's in. He's always, there's always a moment. He's like the drummer in a hard rock band. Like he goes off on this fucking riff and nobody understands what he's doing or what he's saying. Like he There Will Be Blood. He went off on a rant. He started screaming. You couldn't understand what he was saying. He did the same thing in the Batman. He's a good actor, I suppose, if that's what you like. But that whole just overdoing the dramatic parts, it could have been done a lot softer, I think.
Yeah, I would agree with that. On second viewing, it made me feel a little different about the performance and the arc of his character. But Chris, what'd you think of the Riddler when you watched it?
I'd have to agree with Ed's take on it. I mean, I think visually, for what they were trying to do and trying to go in the Zodiac route, I really think that the Riddler's character probably should have been kept more in the shadows. Like, he was more of a visual character. I thought the opening scene was really cool. You had the back shot of his eyes and you got his glasses and, him standing there creepy. And, it was building up the suspense. I was enjoying it. And then he made that stupid cackling, scream before he killed the guy. Like, it wasn't needed. It just seemed to be overdone. He would have been a much more creepy character and a much more terrifying character if you would have seen a lot less of him. If you get the riddles, you get him giving his one off every now and then kind of putting him back in the shadows, keep that suspense building. But the character just seemed to be overdone.
And what do we feel about the ending? Because there's a couple of parts about the Riddler that really irk me in the movie. And on second viewing, it came out a little more to the forefront. But the fact that he's not a part of the finale, it's like henchmen is who Batman's fighting, which I really didn't like. Two, it just, to me, I don't like the idea of them using, he's putting videos out there. Again, it's too reminiscent of what they did with the Joker in The Dark Knight. I felt like doing all these kind of different things. It would have been better if they kind of self-contained it to like just the police crime scene where he's just trying to figure out different things, but it turned into more of like putting everybody on the city on notice that he's killing like all the different like heads that were a part of the one was a drug bust or whatever of believe it's Maroni, right? So I wasn't a big fan of that. I really, for me, I felt like that's more of like a thing that you would have the Joker do. But it is what it is. Let's move on to this. So the ending. What did you feel about the ending, Chris?
I don't think it fit in with the whole story that they were trying to tell about the Riddler. I mean, the Riddler was supposed to be a guy who he emulated Batman, and that's kind of why he wanted to bring Batman in. He's like, "Hey, I liked what you were doing. I'm doing the same thing. We're on the same team." He was killing the guys who were corrupt and who were doing all this stuff to the city. And then he blows up the city. He tries flooding the city at the end and just killing a bunch of random people. Now, it's not bad as a Batman villain character. Of course, I could see that happening. But just the way they did the writing of the story, it just didn't seem to fit in for me. I mean, that's barring a lot of the other, holes that I see in it. But I just think from a writing standpoint, it just didn't fit with the character that they were trying to build. They were trying to build like this vigilante who was like kind of crazy and psycho-y or whatever. But to be flooding the city after your whole point of the movie was just going after the very specific people who were corrupt, it didn't make a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Ed, how'd you feel about the ending of it? They were in their version of Madison Square Garden, Gotham Square Garden.
I thought I like the idea of fighting it out with multiple guys. I'll give you a reason. Mm-hmm. Superman has to have the one big baddie that he tears the fucking city. It's like, Godzilla, King Kong. They got to fight and tear the city apart because they're not quite on equal ground, right? Mm-hmm. Batman, if he's dealing with human beings, he's not on equal ground. That he would smash the Riddler. So he's got to have acolytes. He's got to have the way the Batman show was. He never got to fight with the main baddies. He had to fight their henchmen and shit like that.
And it's kind of exactly what happened at the end of The Dark Knight.
Yeah, that's it. Well, yeah, exactly. It's always got to be, because you got to have the guy showcase his abilities, showcase his toys. That's just how Batman works. I think that making him the psycho that he was and making it like a cult following as his henchman kind of opened that idea of the henchman up. This is the age that we're in. Everybody has a blog. Everybody has a fucking, a page to follow, and he's got these nuts that are following him, and they're willing to do whatever he says. It's just it kind of fit, the current climate, I felt.
Yeah. I think they did that on purpose as well, and I know that triggered some people out there. They didn't like the fact that it was like, it made them feel like it was like an alt-right kind of thing. But I was like, listen, this is Hollywood. This is what they're going to put in there. You mentioned an interesting thing that how did you feel about Batman's toys? Now we're going to go through, the stuff that you saw, right? So the car is always a staple. We got to talk about the Batmobile. All right, maybe not so much like a Batmobile of the past or like a special military weapon. This one was like more of like he did it himself in a garage, and maybe like he has like some sort of rocket jet fuel thing coming out the back, but then like really not too many gadgets itself. The only super high-tech thing we saw was the contact lens, which they used twice in the movie. And then the only other thing that I can honestly remember off the top of my head is the flight suit where he's running away from the cops. If you guys remember anything else, please remind me. But I think those are like the extent. The motorcycle was just a plain old fucking dirt bike. Nothing special about it. No bat pod or anything like that. So I just felt like a lot of the stuff they were lacking, just simple grappling gun. When you watch, he always has this like weird backpack thing attached to his leg. Don't know what the fuck that's about because he never really uses it.
It's a poncho, so he doesn't get wet.
Yeah, well, I guess you can't catch a cold out there. But how'd you guys feel about the gadgets that you saw? Again, preface it that it is an early Batman, but how did you feel about like the Batmobile, the things that you saw, the contact lens?
I think that's what they kind of banked on, the fact that it's 2 years in. He hasn't had a chance to make all of those international contacts, to make his costume better, to make the gadgets better. That Batmobile, although something that I would absolutely rip through my neighborhood, it wasn't like a stereotypical Batmobile, but off the charts hot. But yeah, it was something that it clearly did in the garage with Alfred. They put that shit together themselves with spare parts and shit. It's not something that he would have, gotten overseas, or something that he got in the development program run by Lucius Fox and his own company, which he has.
Yeah, which they didn't tap into at all. It's like this movie didn't give a shit about Wayne Enterprises at all.
No,
at all.
No.
So that was interesting. But Chris, what'd you think about the car, the gadgets that you saw?
Don't get me started on the car. He's got a goddamn rocket. All right, this is what bothers me, and maybe it's just me being crazy.
Let's go.
He's got a motherfucking rocket attached to a motherfucking muscle car, and the guy can't even catch up to the Penguin in a Kia. Why?
No, that wasn't a Kia, my man. That was a Maserati, all right?
Whatever. He's got a goddamn rocket. But actually, the lack of gadgets is what made me appreciate his character and like it all that much more, because I got the feel throughout the whole movie that I took note of it. I was like, wow, he's not really using his belt, like the famous Batman belt that we're all used to with all the different cool gadgets. He was a straight up ass kicker most of the movie, and it made him seem very fallible to me. Like, this is a real human walking into a dangerous situation, and he could get killed. And that's why I think we all love the Batman so much, is because like he's one of us. He doesn't have any superpowers. But this movie, to that end, it really didn't have like a whole lot. One thing I did like was it was like that show Black Mirror. They had the eyes that can record everything, and he had that, and I was like, that is dope, But I think the coolest piece of kit that he had, honestly, was just the bulletproof vest. I mean, there were guys unloading hundreds of rounds into him, and it's just bouncing off of him. I think, it's a very understated and overlooked part of, like, the tech. I mean, think about putting something on you that you can't get shot. And, I mean, he got shot a lot.
The dude also had, and of course, everybody catches it at the end, he had a port built into his suit for that adrenaline shot, which I think had something to do with Bane. It looked exactly like the stuff running through Bane's apparatus.
And that could be something that they tap into the future. But the one thing that I mean, the car sick. The car sequence was really cool. I get the story part of using the contacts, but I would have liked to have seen more gadgets. Again, that's like, he doesn't have superpowers. This is why people like Batman. But his superpower, they didn't tap into, which is that he's fucking filthy rich. I felt like they really didn't do anything with that at all. Maybe it's to hold off for a second movie. But, for me, I thought there should have been a couple of more things, just the way that he could have used more stuff. It was like the adrenaline shot, the contact, the flight suit, and the car. That's all he had gotten. And then he had like a little portable computer. That was about it. Thank God he had a laptop, But
was a laptop.
Yeah, when they catch Penguin and he's like looking it up and shit. All right, so now there was a ton of other characters in this movie. I'll kind of go through them a lot. So
Fab died.
He's gone. It's a very awkward position to look at him with his mouth open.
Unstable. All right, I'm back.
There he is. Start over, Kujin.
All right, so let's go through the list of other characters, all right? Because besides Robert Pattinson, there was my man Schmeagol was in the movie. He played Alfred. Andy Serkis really didn't have a lot to do in this movie. Had maybe about 4 or 5 scenes that gets blown up. Not fair to Alfred. Then we also had the Penguin, who was played by Colin Farrell, if you didn't know, because he had a bunch of prosthetics on his face. We had John Turturro, who played Carmine Falcone, who I thought that's probably my overall best character. I loved Turturro's performance. We had the Catwoman, which was Selena Kyle, played by Zoe Kravitz, and who else? Who else? Oh, and Gordon. Gordon's probably my right. I actually love that. I'm back. I'm sorry. My signals forgave me. Can't wait to get this fucking Optimus shit out of my house. Anyway, so we had Turturro, we had fucking Penguin, we had Zoe Kravitz, we had Jeffrey Wright. Jeffrey Wright, I would just tell you right now, probably my least. Not to say he's a bad actor because I love him. I just didn't think he was a great Gordon. Didn't hit me as a good Gordon. I know, and he's basically the partner to Batman the whole movie. But
he's not commissioner yet either.
He's not commissioner; he's just a lieutenant in this movie. But for me, I really didn't dig him. My favorite character of everybody is probably John Turturro's Carmine Falcone. I thought he was great in the movie. But what about you guys? We'll start with Ed.
I gotta go with Colin Farrell. That was fucking Oscar worthy. If I didn't know beforehand, I would have never in a million years guessed that it was him. He's made up for all the fucking flops he's done recently. I also think that my least favorite, I didn't dig Catwoman. I wasn't a fan. I thought she was less than a. That whole sequence in the club and her finding out about Falcone, there was nothing in any of that I thought was necessary for the movie. Maybe not that she's not a great actress or even a good actress. I haven't seen her in enough stuff, but I just feel like she's a victim of bad writing and just bad placement in the movie.
I agree with that. Did he freeze?
Yeah, he's frozen. You're up, Chris.
I think there he is.
My signal's doo-doo, baby. It's doo-doo tonight. God damn, my parents are back stealing all the Wi-Fi. Fucking shit, man. And I'm right below the fucking router. That's what's really sad. But I'm sorry. Go ahead. I don't know where you went off because I blanked out.
So I'd say my favorite. Well, we're also forgetting probably the most underrated background character, Officer Martinez, the beat cop who seemed to be in every important position ever.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Wade.
Who had the balls to stand up to Batman?
Yeah.
Stop right there, buddy. That's true.
But on a serious note, I think was it Michael Turturro did an absolutely phenomenal job. I think his performance was probably just as good as Colin Farrell's, but Colin Farrell just stole the show just because of the makeup. I mean, dude, like Ed said, I mean, never in a million years would I have ever guessed that was him. I thought that their characters were very grounded and, down to earth, like a typical mafia, like that's what you would expect a criminal, a villain to be. I thought they did awesome. I thought the Capone aspect to Colin Farrell's Penguin was phenomenal. I thought it was kind of cool that they threw the twist in. I wasn't expecting, Falcone to be in charge of the Penguin at the very beginning. I thought that was different and cool. Like you got to see the Penguin before he really became the Penguin. Yeah. And I also have to agree with Ed. My least favorite character, definitely Catwoman. I thought that Kravitz was not a good I just didn't like her acting. I thought the mask was stupid that they used for her. It just her placement in some of these scenes wasn't cool. I was not a fan of her.
You know what her mask reminded me of?
Pussy masks.
The pussy mask. That's right. The girls from Russia. You remember the pussy mask? That's what it reminded me of. But honestly, I didn't have a bad time with Zoe Kravitz. I thought she was okay. I just want to make a funny point that I hope Don't you fuck with me, Wi-Fi. Don't you do it now. But there's a moment in the movie that Batman is just a fucking peeping Tom.
Yes.
And this is like, they just keep doing it. I watched another thing that showed like you remember the old Superman, not old Superman, but the Superman that they made before they made Man of Steel. There was like a moment where he flies down.
He's standing outside his old
He's
lady's
like
house. Yeah.
he's like flying over Lois Lane's house, and he's like staring through to see through X. It's like, you fucking peeping Tom, bro. What is this? You know what I mean? You make our superheroes look like fucking weirdos. I mean, I know there's partly weird, but for God's sakes, you couldn't come up with some fucking better story than that. But I mean, and you get to watch Zoe Kravitz get into her underwear and get dressed. That's why they did it, because everybody's got to be a sick prick all the time. But let's continue on. So we kind of talked about the story for the most part, but the cinematography. I mean, I feel like that's the shining part of this movie. Everybody loved Matt Reeves, the way he directed the movie, the cinematography on it, the look that they were going for Gotham. So I think we're all in agreement on that one, right?
Yeah. I thought that they did everything right on that end. They struck a good balance.
Yeah.
I think that it's hard not to nail that kind of shit. I mean, you just have to do it dark. The city has to look wet. I do think that it was interesting that for the longest time, Gotham was kind of like the Chicago kind of feel. In fact, they filmed all of the Nolan Batman in Chicago. So but now everything.
Well, with the exception of the Dark Knight Rises, they filmed a lot of that in Pittsburgh and Manhattan.
Yeah, but in this one, everything it's the city. It's New York. It's back to New York.
You know what? I thought it was interesting.
Times Square and so on.
Yeah, the Times Square one looked cool, but man, this could have been Seattle the way it was raining in every fucking major scene. It was like the rainy season, because the part with the car chase, it was raining. In the beginning, it was raining. Towards the end, it was raining. It was like every fucking shot in this movie, with like a few exceptions, were like always in the rain. So I thought that was interesting. I'm not a big fan of like repeatedly doing the same thing. Want to touch on one thing. Batman, right? You believe is somewhat of an action movie, right? But there's not much action in this movie. It's not. It's about one major sequence and then the finale. There's nothing else. Nothing else. How does that make you feel? Did you care? Did you not care? I mean, because there's really no action. And if you just look at the Batmans from before, the ones that everybody holds so high up, there's multiple action sequences in all those movies. Now, they're not like 15, 20, 30 minutes long, but, you know, this was like no action for like an hour. And I'm sorry, somebody getting their head blown off. It's not fucking action.
We've lost sight of who Batman really is because of the Nolan franchise and even in the comic book universe. Like if you're a connoisseur, and to be a Batman fan in the comic books, you have to be a connoisseur. You have to be his comic books, the way they lay out, it's like the fine wine of fucking graphic novels, right? So you have the comic books, your general Batman comic books where Robin is still alive, or Robin is dead and there's a new Robin and there's Nightwing and there's and then you have like that Dark Knight kind of saga,
the graphic novel ones. Yeah,
everything is like black and white. He's a very solemn character, and honestly, there's not a lot of like action scenes like framed out. He's still the world's greatest detective. So when you have, it's going to be a movie like this where he doesn't have the gadgets, he doesn't have like the super baddie just yet. So he's using his skill, he's using his real skill to solve these crimes. I mean, and for whatever action there was, the car scene was short, but it was good. I thought it was great. The fight scenes that they did have, they're a little bit more realistic. You saw him take a few shots. Be it by gunfire or somebody kicking his ass. I felt like they kind of stayed close to that. He's still new at it. Give him a chance to develop into the badass that we all know and love. and and see what happens in later movies.
Chris, anything to kind of piggyback off that?
I wasn't. I think that the action scenes that they did do were really cool. I thought that they had good fight choreography. They really, like I said, they made it very realistic in the way that he fought people, and I liked that, but they definitely didn't have enough of it. And to Ed's point of Batman being the world's greatest detective, I could see that angle, and I could forgive a lot of the mistakes or the lack of action in the movie if that was the case. But he didn't really detect anything in this movie. He had the one big breakthrough where they found the puzzle. There was a puzzle where all the stuff was written out on that chart. Alfred found that. It wasn't even Batman.
And that was like a throwaway. Oh, I did a little research on that thing, just to throw it in there. El Rata Alada, whatever. I don't
he couldn't figure out the simple Spanish word. So you have Alfred helping him on one hand, giving him another clue on the other hand. He had his technology help him on some other stuff. And at the very end, I could forgive all of that if he solved the actual riddle, but he didn't, because the Riddler gave himself up. So, at the end of the day, what did Batman actually detect? I mean, you could throw him out of this movie and he would essentially be irrelevant, because everything would happen the way it would happen. Everybody ended up getting blown up or killed who the Riddler wanted, and he ended up blowing up the city, so he didn't really stop anything or detect anything. So if you're going to go that end, then put more action into it to show, that dynamic. I just don't think that. I think it was sloppy writing the way that everything kind of went out. I thought that the riddles weren't, very, it's just everything kind of seemed to be throwaways.
I agree. I really didn't dig it too much. I thought, I get why going to the Riddler, because you haven't seen another version of it since Jim Carrey's, unless you're going to count the Gotham show, but we're not at this point. But let's get to one other thing. There's a cameo, and we all know which cameo I'm talking about towards the end. He's the biggest of all of Batman's rogue gallery, and they couldn't make a Batman movie without just at least putting him slightly in there. And, of course, I'm talking about the Joker, who's talking, which, I read that they were talking about taking that scene out. But then it almost felt like the Riddler had no ending to his story, because after Batman goes to talk to him at the asylum, you would have never seen him again. So they put that in to kind of give him a little ending to it, but I guess also to hint at the Joker. Now, if you haven't seen the 5-minute scene that they cut where the Joker is actually in the movie and talking to Batman, it's a much better scene, but it gives away way too much. That's why they cut it out. So what was it? How did you feel? Have you seen that scene that was cut? And how did you feel about that scene that was in the movie when you watched it?
I don't think either one was necessary, honestly. I really don't. It's in the what they left in the movie was cannon fodder. It was an inevitability. Everybody knows that it's coming, and I think that Nolan played it off best with just that playing card at the end of the first movie, and everybody's like, oh, and you're just waiting for the next shoe to drop. But then you got to wait for the next movie. I think they showed too much. They showed their hand for a dude that's probably not even going to play the Joker. We have no idea if he's going to play him in the next movie.
Well, they don't even think the Joker's actually going to be the villain of the next movie.
Yeah,
they're talking about they have two things on HBO Max that they're developing right now, which is one of them is a show about the Penguin, which they kind of set up to kind of move forward from here, and then a show about Arkham itself, which is interesting because they've done the whole police angle, they've done Alfred angle, now they want to do the asylum, which they had a lot of cool things about this movie, talking about the asylum, how they mentioned that Bruce's mom is an Arkham, so she's from that family, Yeah. Dallas, you're interrupting here, girl.
She's killing me. I'm trying to push her off, and she will not get off. She's like,
no, she needs that love, baby. She needs that love. But Chris, so what did you feel? What the hell were we just saying?
Joker.
The Joker. How did you feel about that scene?
I agree with Ed. I don't think it was necessary. I thought that the way he played it off was kind of cool. I was interested in the character, but it's kind of like one of those, we've seen it. What else can we have? But the 5-minute cut that they ended up cutting out of the movie, it kind of bothered me in the sense that it looked like Batman knew him. So in that case, Batman probably put the Joker in. He locked him up. That's why the Joker's there, which kind of throws it into, okay, now if he's already fought the Joker and the Riddler's the next villain, but he's only been doing this 2 years, it seems like this Batman has enough experience that we shouldn't have the plot holes and all of these, like, well, he's just still beginning out to be Batman, all these things that everybody's saying. That shouldn't be the fact. If the Joker was already the case, Batman knows who he is. Bruce Wayne, I mean, that was a serious major character. So I don't think it fit in properly. I think they should kind of just left it out, maybe throw like a little Easter egg at the end, like this is what's coming or whatever.
I think you're right. It would have probably been best if it was like a post-credit scene. But DC has a hard time with those because that's like Marvel's staple. So they had to put it in. I would just say this about it. From what I've read, he's not actually the Joker yet. But Batman did catch him and put him in the asylum. So it's like he looks way different. Some people saying he's doing a little bit of a Heath Ledger impression, kind of. But the kid's Irish, and you can't really hear his Irish accent at all. I think he's visually, with his little laugh and his mannerisms. Again, majority of this is in the 5-minute scene that was cut. I thought it was interesting. The scene doesn't necessarily make sense in the movie. The scene that they did leave in doesn't necessarily push the story along at all. They don't have any intention of using the Joker, from what I heard, as the villain of the second movie, but maybe that changes. But again, I would agree with you guys. It really didn't do anything. They could have put it literally after the credits, and you probably would have got a better reaction from people, right?
I just want to say one more thing on the Joker. It should be at this point we've already seen it. I mean, they really need to just give up. They're not going to strike gold twice with this. Heath Ledger, in my opinion, look, I love the Jack Nicholson character as well, but they're really trying to strike on this Heath Ledger thing because of all the success and the pop culture status that character has gotten. And I think that they're trying to hit it again, and they just keep trying to do the same thing. Batman's got a lot of other cool villains that we've never seen, on the screen before. Put in some of them, Red Hood, somebody, anybody.
Just but see, Red Hood is not a story you can do without the Joker, because Red Hood or Robin, which for some reason most of the Batman movies have steered away from Robin. Because they were so horrendous in the 90s, putting nipples and shit on the costume and fucking giant bulges that they just don't even want to go back to it. I mean, I thought one of the best things about Batman vs. Superman was the hint at Robin being killed by Joker. And they did nothing with it. Nothing.
I was excited for Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and they screwed that up, man. They left me hanging with him on that last scene. I was like, all right, we're getting a Robin.
That was interesting.
No, but that was a good ending. I like that one, though. I have to say, I had no issue with that. But, all right, so let's move on to the final part here, which is, of course, our rating, and then we'll get to the part of talking about coming future with this movie or this franchise. All right, so, Christopher, you were the last person to watch the movie, so you'll be the first person to give us your opinion. Overall rating, what do you think? 3 out of 5 marrons? Well, how many?
I'd say if we're going on a 5-star rating,
a 10. We'll go 10 out of 10.
We'll go 10. Out of a 10, I would give it honestly 6.5. It's not, to me, it wasn't a bad movie. It was something that I would watch. I don't like that it was 3 hours. If they could have tailored it down, that would have been great. It's not something that I would probably turn off, intentionally. It entertained me to a degree, but I'd say 6.5. It wasn't anything I'm going to go out of my way to watch again. It doesn't even rank. I think all of Nolan's films were better than this one, in my opinion. It's not. This is. They could have done a lot better. From there, going forward, they got to fill in a lot of plot holes, and they got to have 2 distinct characters. There needs to be a Bruce Wayne as well as a Batman. They're not the same character. I don't want them. I hope that's not the direction that they're going, and I hope that they keep the political woke bullshit, all of that out of this movie. It's a superhero movie. We need to have the rich white guy who has all the cool shit. Like let's not go. Well, no, but
Batman's going to be black in the next movie. Didn't you?
no, it's not even only a black or white thing. It's just like I think part of the thing that they're trying to do is that they don't want to bring the money into it. They're trying to do something different. He's a rich dude. Give him all, we need to have two of those characters.
I feel the same way. Honestly, the lack of Wayne Enterprises in this movie, and just like the fact that like he's a billionaire, it's just like so glossed over, like it doesn't matter. But all right, Ed, you got a 6 out of 5 out of 10. What do you got?
I give it 6 scuttles too, because it's enough that the character is always going to drive that child in us. We're always going to want that instant gratification of watching Batman on the big screen. It's the same thing as Superman and all of the, of late, the Marvel movies. Chris is absolutely right. There has to be division in the character. There has to be more definition in not necessarily a backstory, but in his lifestyle. The guy is Batman all the time, and Wayne is the front.
Come on, where the bitches? Where the bitches? Batman gets bitches. What's going on?
Well,
at least Bruce.
He fucked that up with this half-ass Selena Kyle character. It was terrible.
He didn't tap that ass one time. Come on. In the comic, he's eating la chucha and everything. Listen, we don't get nothing here. Whatever, man. That's all I'm saying. I want to fucking define Bruce Wayne Batman. I need to see some different shit, man. Me, I'm basically where Chris is. 6.5. I can't go to 7 or 8. This movie did not warrant that. It actually was probably like a 6.8, but when I watched it a second time, it went down to a 6.5. If I watch it a third time, it'll be like a 5.5. So I'm just never gonna watch it again. But just this week, they already announced they greenlit the second one. Matt Reeves is coming back to direct. Pattinson's coming back to be Batman, Bruce Wayne. So it's going to be coming out. Figure 2 to 3 years from now, because they have to develop the story and then film it. So probably, 2025, 2026, you're going to see the sequel to the Batman. What do you hope they lean towards? Do you have any hope that'll be better than this one? And then, just to finish it off, top 5 Batman. What are they? And is this even in the top 5?
If they're not doing a Joker storyline, then it has to be Ra's al Ghul. It has to be. There's no. I mean, I enjoy the other characters.
But he was in the last trilogy. He had a major part.
Yeah, but he's still a part of Batman's history. Like that, the codex that is Batman has roots in that story. The Brotherhood. So if it's not the Joker, it's got to be him. It's got to be somebody that makes him who he is. And if it's not Joker, then everybody else is just like a peripheral character.
Yeah. Chris, what about you? What do you think about the next movie? Who do you want to see?
He actually kind of said what I was going to say. My favorite movie was probably the first Batman with Ra's al Ghul and Liam Neeson. I thought it was just something that we haven't seen before. You saw him climb the mountain with the flower, go through the temple, kind of fight himself in the process.
Become a ninja.
Essentially become a ninja, but the backstory behind it about like how they were kind of trying to eradicate evil by being evil. Like it was just such a cool, a dynamic. Now, are they going to do that? Probably not. I don't want to see the Joker, obviously, because of what I said. It's one of those things that's been done before. I think that they're going to have to start the movie off with some kind of they got to give it a backstory. You got to tell you why he's doing what he's doing. And I think that they need to go backwards a little bit. I think too much detective is it's too slow of a pace of a movie. That's just
I agree. Would agree. I 100%. But they haven't done Mr. Freeze. They haven't done a few other characters. I know.
There are characters that are way too comic book for this type of movie. Like
but they were talking about the Court of Owls possibly in the near future. It seems like they're setting up something for the Penguin. I don't know if it's just going to be the show, but how much of a threat will he be to this Batman? The one I really want to see, which I don't think we'll ever get, is Batman vs. Deathstroke. because that's like a fucking hand-to-hand combat. He's
That'll
fighting
be
a mercenary. That would
3
be a
hours.
great movie.
That'll be 3 hours of sword fights. That'd be great.
Listen, I'll fucking take it. At least it'd be action-packed. All right, so let's do this. All right, top 5, Batman. What do you got? And does this one crack the top 5? We'll start with you, Ed. What you got?
Dude, Nolan's 3 in order.
1, 2, 3. Oh, Dark Knight, not even first.
No, I because of the progression. That's all. And then
Okay.
Keaton's first. Yo, I liked Ben Affleck, bro.
I know, but his movies were trash, bro.
Yo, but if I don't know, then I'm gonna go. Does Batman Superman count?
It could.
I'm gonna use that then. Fuck it.
Ugh, I wouldn't put that in the top 5. But, all right, Chris, what's your top 5? What you got?
So 3 out of the 5 I agree with. All 3 of Nolan's in order. Basically, I mean, I loved the Dark Knight Rises, and I loved the Bane storyline, but I just think the progression of all 3 of them was it was an epic storytelling, movie for me. So those 3 would be that. My 4th, honestly, because my favorite, and I know I get a lot of flack for this because I'm a big Marvel fan. Superhero wise, I like DC, but movies, cinematically, I think Marvel just always nails it. But my favorite superhero movie of all time was actually Zack Snyder's 4-hour cut of Justice League. I thought that movie in its entirety, the way it was done, it was a little more comic booky than I'm used to, than I usually like. But for me, it hit the nail on the head. And I thought Ben Affleck's character in that, how he was kind of like the ringleader, I thought he did a fantastic job in that movie. So I would probably put that as number 4. I thought Batman vs Superman, and I'm the biggest Superman fan ever. Like, I just thought it was garbage. It just wasn't believable for me. So that movie didn't hit it for me. My number 5 would be Keaton. There we go, buddy. Keaton to me is always going to be, that's the Batman I remember growing up. I loved Jack Nicholson's character. I thought Keaton's movies were very comic booky, but I loved him. So, I mean, I don't know. It's hard for me as far as 4 and 5. Keaton's pretty close for me. But yeah,
You're saying the original.
The original, yeah. I hated Val Kilmer's take on it. I hated George Clooney's take on it.
That's the worst.
I wasn't a fan of it. And Pattinson, like I said, he's not bad, but he probably falls under Keaton. He's not as bad as Kilmer and Clooney to me, but he definitely doesn't break into that category.
I'm very shocked. Because 2 people did not mention Batman Returns at all. And I think that's the best of Keaton's. I think it's better than the original. And for me, I would go Dark Knight, Batman Begins, Dark Knight Rises, Batman Returns, and then the original Batman.
Wait, you thought that Catwoman and Penguin make the top
I thought that movie.
You thought that was better than the first?
Yeah, I thought listen, it's certainly better than the fucking Batman vs Superman.
Are you
one of the worst
shit
movies
about
I've ever
Danny
seen?
DeVito and Michelle Pfeiffer?
Yo,
that's right.
What the fuck was the dude? Never
that movie was fantastic, bro. All right, any movie that has Christopher Walken in it, top 5 material right away. The guy put a watch in his ass for fucking 2 months. All right, I believe it. So for me, that's my top 5. Nothing will ever beat Nolan's. I love Batman Begins. Definitely great, but I love The Dark Knight the best. I think it's still hands down, if not the greatest comic book movie. It's right up there with like Infinity War for me. Those are like the 2 best comic book movies I've ever seen. And this one, not a top 5. I can't believe people were saying outlandish shit like the Riddler was better than Heath Ledger's Joker. This movie is better than all the Nolan movies. Shut the fuck up, all right? Get out of this prisoner of the moment shit, because there's no way in hell those movies are on the same length. I'm sorry, Christopher Nolan is an outstanding director. Nothing against Matt Reeves. I just don't think this movie needed to be 3 hours, and I don't think it was as great as some of the people were putting it out there to be. So I was a little disappointed by that. I do like Batman. All right, just so everybody knows, if you haven't heard any of the rumors, Batman, not only is he going to be in the Flash movie, but there's going to be 2 Batman in it. Not just one, 2. All right, so you're gonna get to see your Affleck one more time. All right, and then you're gonna see fucking Keaton in it, and then Keaton is gonna be in something else. I believe the Batgirl show or Batgirl movie, whatever the fuck it is. So he's not done. They're gonna fucking ride him until he's dead. All right, 40 years later, they're bringing him back. Whatever.
That guy's spending DC and Marvel movie money.
That's right, baby. And he's in Marvel movies that make no sense whatsoever, like Morbius. But we're not even going to talk about it because that's trash. But that's pretty much it, boys. I want to thank you both for joining me here, talking about this movie. Hopefully, the next one we talk about is Eddie. You know what I'm talking about. All right? We see all these different Batman in the multiverse. Well, they're about to drop a multiversal movie next week, baby, and it's the he's got a lot of patience, and I'm a 3-hour fucking movie. Doctor Strange's gonna be like 2 hours and 10 minutes. It's gonna be a banger, pop. So that's the next shit that's coming. You know we're gonna get on that. So Chris, get your ass to a theater next weekend, my man, so you can hop. All right. But guys, I want to thank you for joining me. We'll put this out on all different social media shit so we can get some views. If you're watching this, guys, please hit the like and subscribe button. And Ed, Chris, thank you guys for joining me. And I appreciate you talking and watching a fucking 3-hour long Batman movie that we can all agree is not top 5 material of Batman movies. So thank you, boys. And I'll talk to you guys next time. Peace out, everybody.
Later, dudes.
Later.
Later.
Peace.